The grind for fantasy supremacy continues on the latest edition of your daily 30-minute source for fantasy hockey, NHL news, and betting breakdowns. The Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast has all of the news that you need covered. On Wednesday's episode, let's tap into Stolarz, Demko, and of course, big-time bets. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Buckle up, hockey heads. The fantasy action is getting intense on the Hump Day edition of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Salute, shout out, much love, and thank you so much to the everydayers holding us down, making us your first listen every single day. Steele, I don't know how I can say it more. These days, the feedback from our listeners, I see you guys in the DMs. We got people overseas. We got people talking to us that I have never interacted before, and they're into the show and supporting the pod. So it means the world to both Steele and I, and we hope that we've been getting you near the top or to the top of your fantasy hockey leagues. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Built Rewards. Start earning points on rent that you've already been paying by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNHL today. We got a lot to cover, my friend, and you're going to hold me down on this one because I'm a little bit all over the map here, but we got some goaltending issues to address. Vancouver, Toronto. Of course, we're going to get to big-time bets, but we got to check in a little bit across the board on the Edmonton Oilers as well, the Florida Panthers, and the Oil going toe-to-toe the other night, Steele. Let's talk about Zach Hyman. There's some other topics to get to. I need to turn it over to you first and foremost. You had a huge week across the board in your fantasy leagues. If you missed that, check Steele out on Twitter. He's been crushing it, so I think it's clear I should be turning over to you for the fantasy angles. Hit me with what you're seeing from these Canadian teams, starting with the Leafs.
Yeah, it might be a tale of two different weeks for myself. As like I mentioned on our most recent episode, it has been a goalie phenomenon going on right now with the injury bug and the illnesses across the league. Daniel Vladar, Anthony Stolarz, Cam Talbot, Philip Gustafson, Kevin Lankinen. We're going to talk about all of these goaltenders, but Anthony Stolarz, the news is officially out. He will be out 4 to 6 weeks after undergoing knee surgery after an MRI was taken on his knee. It looks like there seems to be, the smallest of smallest pebbles, they're calling it. Loose going around in there, but he will be out 4 to 6 weeks for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They are going to rely heavily on Joseph Woll. Obviously, huge fantasy implications for your team, especially mine. I've got it in both the competitive and casual league, so it's going to be detrimental. That's why I said it's going to be a tough week for me moving forward. If you've got Joseph Woll, I know you do out there in one of your fantasy leagues, he is going to be a crucial part over the next 6 weeks for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Obviously, with his history with injuries as well, I think you definitely got to consider taking a look at whoever's backing him up, whether it be Dennis Hildeby, potentially Matt Murray, whoever it is. Obviously, if Hildeby's going to be the guy going with them on the road and with them for the next 4 to 6 weeks, I would strongly suggest picking up him as well, just because you got to be concerned about Joseph Woll, making sure that he gets the appropriate amount of rest, making sure you're not over extending his stay in the blue crease, what we just saw with Anthony Stolarz from this injury right now. So obviously, if you've got Woll, you're ecstatic for him to kind of get that spotlight right now in the blue paint, but a lot of options out there with Hildeby potentially being the backup for the time being.
Absolutely excellent point, though, with the backup situation in Toronto now, because they also have 2 back-to-back games coming up over the next 2 weekends. So that means Dennis Hildeby, and it's looking so he was recalled. That means 2 starts for Dennis Hildeby on a very good Toronto Maple Leafs team. So there you go in deeper formats. He is worth a stash over the next couple of weeks, I would say, especially when, and this is what I said over the weekend, Steele, and why this matters more than ever, I would say, over the last few years in the Toronto blue paint. Yeah, of course, we've looked to the cage for wins, but now you're actually looking to the cage for all of the numbers and statistics that could also win you your week in those categorical fantasy leagues, because that's just how good Stolarz and Woll have been. Speaking of more specifically with the guy with that pebble in his knee, I've never heard that before, but hopefully that's more minor than not.
Yeah.
Before his injury, Steele, of goaltenders with 10 or more starts, he was second in the NHL in save percentage. He was only behind Connor Hellebuck for, I believe, both of those statistics are right there for save percentage and goals against. And he has been nothing short of sensational. So this is one of those things that I said on Saturday, and you just alluded to it. Can Joseph Woll silence the one critique? I don't think you can really say anything about Woll's game other than the injury concerns, especially fantasy-wise, of his entire performance in the NHL. So
Yeah.
he has now a real chance to put those doubts to bed. So will he do that? I don't know what you think. I think he has a good chance to do it, especially when I look at, I just had the Leafs schedule up over the next few weeks. So Dallas, tough one, but then they got the Sabres, the Islanders, the Red Wings, and then the Islanders again. Throw the Jets and the Caps in there. Not a bad stretch. So let's see what happens. You got to keep your eyes double peeled. I say that all the time, but we're going to have to talk about another goaltender and the Vancouver Canucks after the break. We got bets coming, but let's turn it over to the Edmonton Oilers, if you don't mind, Steele.
Yeah, of course.
That Florida Panthers game, and I know I've been slacking in the macking a little bit, I didn't miss a single point of that game. And hey, shout out to the big German Leon Draisaitl, 2+ points, cha-ching. That was a crazy game. I don't know what your take on it is. I have a few, but I want to turn it over to you. We'll talk about Zach Hyman, but this is one of those angles that I need to ask you. Are these going to be the last two teams standing? Because after you see a game like that and what they did last season, I can't help but feel we might be having a little double dip on the Cup final. But old take, we'll get into the fantasy. I just wanted your opinion on that.
I don't think it will be the last two teams remaining. And I mean, to be the same exact teams in back-to-back. I mean, Florida has already done it in back-to-back seasons for themselves. For them to do it 3 times with the Edmonton Oilers doing it back-to-back, I just don't think those odds are likely of happening. So I'm going to go with the no on that question there. Fantasy-wise, and the overall performance from the Edmonton Oilers, just an absolute choke job once again from Oiler Nation. I mean, you're up, 5-2 going into the third period. You absolutely choke. Stuart Skinner showcasing why he is not one of the best goaltenders, or maybe even considered a top 10 goaltender in the league right now, because of the inconsistent play. He has been, again, fantasy-wise, just one of those goaltenders that's been a huge letdown personally. Back-to-back years where I've drafted him at least in one of my leagues, and there's just no consistency to his game. I know the Edmonton Oilers were on that five-game winning streak. He was playing a lot better, but I mean, in that type of situation, just there's no way you can allow that Sam Reinhart goal below the goal line. There's just no reason for this collapse from the Edmonton Oilers. So on that note, Stuart Skinner was very disappointing. However, Zach Hyman, in the same breath, he's been fantastic down the last 5 games. 5 goals in his last 5 games. He's finally capitalizing and burying on those chances that he was missing on almost every single time the puck came near him in the first month and a half, 2 months of the season. So it's good to see him doing what he does best, scoring goals in those high danger areas, in the blue paint, in front of the crease, and finally capitalizing on those. He's up to 10 goals, 15 points now on the season. And it's just good to see him, for everyone who drafted him, in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, just to get some fantasy value back from this player has been very good.
Everyone out there in the game close to fantasy circles, it was kind of a safe prediction to say that this is one of those guys that you faded. And the way he started, it was almost like people were ready to write him off completely. And, maybe we were getting there close as well, Steele, but you knew when he came back, he was going to at least do something. And the fact that he has kind of blown the doors off here and been a major reason why, even last night, it's not his fault that they lost the game. He was sensational once again. I have a few different takes on what's going on at Edmonton. The main focus is Zach Hyman. If you were patient, the right move. And for some reason, if you were that person who bailed on him really early, I don't feel for you. If you waited and bailed, that's another thing, because fantasy-wise, this is a gold mine. And I want to talk a little bit more about the Oilers quickly after the break.
Yeah.
We'll get to the Canucks. We got bets ready to rock, especially for Steele, although I do have 3 picks ready to go just in case, Steele. I like to get degenerate. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Select Quote. The World Series, Super Bowl, the Olympics. The world's top athletes get to play in these top level events thanks to teamwork. And teamwork can also provide you the financial legacy for your family's future. And right now at SelectQuote, you got to be checking it out. The right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/locked-on. Go to selectquote.com/locked-on today to get started. That's selectquote.com/locked-on NHL. Hit it up today. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at Built Rewards. If you're a renter, listen up. This is a game changer. Thanks to Built, you can earn points on rent payments just like you do with groceries or travel. Paying rent now comes with serious perks. We love the perks for travel. Built makes it easy for you to turn rent into rewards. It's that simple. If you're already paying rent, why not make it work for y'all? Start earning points when you pay rent already by going to joinbuilt.com/locked-on-NHL. That's joinbuilt.com/locked-on-NHL. Steel, I don't know about you, but I need to know a whole lot more about this. Make sure you use our link in the description that you know we sent you. Don't wait. Start earning points today with Built Rewards.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, follow button. Make sure you share with your friends and family over the holiday season. We appreciate all the love and support you've been showing us. So thank you so much for all the interaction, the feedback, and the connection that we've made so far over the last 3 years, honestly, with all of our listeners out there. Thank you so much for all the support that you've shown us. We really do appreciate it. Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning is when you can find our episodes. We're trying to support these Edmonton Oilers out here after a huge debacle of a game. We're trying to.
That is a debacle, Steele. Good term.
It was. I mean, to me, it's unacceptable. I mean, this is a rematch performance against the Stanley Cup Finals. Yeah. You've got the lead going into the third period, and once again, Stuart Skinner shows his inability to clutch up in some of these performances. So to me, it's inexcusable. And obviously fantasy wise, if you got Stuart Skinner, some of those guys, it's hard to see.
There was a lot going on in that game the other night. There was some very questionable officiating, if I'm being like straight down the middle. I don't know if you would agree with me on that one. There was a couple of calls there that I guess I don't know what hockey is anymore. And that might be fair.
We don't know what the rules are anymore. Yeah, they change on the fly. I mean, the goaltending interference call this entire season has been lopsided. I mean, one second it's a goal, the next time it's not a goal. They don't know how to make up their mind. There's no consistency with the officiating.
Yeah, and I don't know because if that's 5.8 degrees centigrade in my house because I don't have a furnace, or maybe my brain's just overheating. I don't know what it is, but that game seemed to have a lot in it. And what I took away from it is a few things. Like, look, Leon Draisaitl right now is getting some very good money on the Hart Trophy and some very good money also on the Rocket Richard Trophy. And when the big German is cooking like that, that was one of the takeaways that I had. That's sensational. And if somehow the Edmonton Oilers do everything they can to blow another amazing season from both of those big guns up front and somehow kind of back into the playoffs, and I don't even know. But they have to pull it together. So Stuart Skinner, fantasy-wise, this is a frustrating situation, even though he's been on a bit of a heater. The pieces around them, we're going to continue to monitor. The Nurse, the Ryan Nugent-Hopkins of the world. The fact is, and I'll leave it at this, and we can move on. The last year, they were clicking on the power play, both in the playoffs and in the regular season, at historically good levels. So the fact that they actually sit 13th in the NHL right now, not well outside, but outside the top 10, and they are still kind of scoring at will. That shows me that just like last year, they're going to get their steal. They're going to be that dominant force in the Western Conference. They just need to piece it together. And I really can't put my finger on why that is, that they kind of have these slow starts and then inconsistencies. But maybe we'll break that down on another episode. I want to turn it over to you, though, because I do want to talk about the Canucks and this blue crease. The blue paint, because this is something that's starting to get real intriguing.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a lot of options out there, and it's getting interesting for any fantasy owners who have any three of these goalies, Demko, Lankinen, and Shelovs as well. I think Shelovs is going to take. I think he's going to be the one to take a seat in the backseat and be that third goalie in the rotation. As of right now, he actually is the backup because Kevin Lankinen is out with illness.
Yeah.
But this is huge news, obviously, for the Vancouver Canucks. They get Thatcher Demko back, obviously coming back from rehabbing his injuries, and he's already played 3 games in the last week. So I think, obviously, from a management standpoint and a coaching standpoint, you need to ease him back into the action. You don't want to throw him right in with the Sharks. 3 games in, first 2 performances were not great. Great game, great win against the Colorado Avalanche the other day. Kiefer Sherwood popping off for his first hat trick of his National Hockey League career as well. Right. But Thatcher Demko, obviously, he's the go-to guy. Again, you can just, I think fantasy owners out there have to be aware that he's not going to be consistently getting those starts as you would be. Again, there's a lot of concern with just easing him back into the situation. If you're holding on to, if you've got Kevin Lankinen, considerably, I would argue to holding him for as long as possible as well until, anything changes with the dynamic between those 2 goaltenders. If you're holding on to Artur Shilovs, I don't know what his roster percentage is at right now across hockey platforms, but I think it's safe to say he's probably a droppable goalie at this point.
Yeah, if you even had him at all, I think this is what it's funny because when I first started to kind of look at Demko's return, and nothing against Lankinen at all, like, well, I'm going to get into the numbers in a second. I guess my initial reaction was kind of like, oh yeah, Lankinen's cooked. Like that's this is Demko's crease now, and I don't think that's fair.
I don't think so. No,
that's why I'm coming on here to say I totally agree with you, and it's for 2 reasons. Look, the injury risk with Demko is just so very real. You do have to fleece him back in slowly. And how good Lankinen has been. Look, 3 shutties, 2.52 goals against, and a 912 save percentage. This is a guy that I think, he was on waivers multiple times over the last couple of years. So that is where my immediate brain goes to, oh, Demko's back, Lankinen, he's out. No. And this is what I said the other day, Steele, too, on this show. We are for everybody. Experts, middle of the rung. If you're new to the fantasy game, and I think a lot of new fantasy GMs, just because like my noodle's cooked, you might see Demko coming back and you just ship Lankinen out. Not when he's 14-4-3. Not when Rick Tocchet just called out this team. I like the way that they responded the other night. You mentioned how Demko got that win. That's big for him. That's big for this bunch. I would actually look to them to go on perhaps a mini heater here if the schedule is right, especially because the Avalanche are hot, 31 shots on net. Let me finish with this, and then we can get to big-time bets, whatever you want. Thatcher Demko back now provides a little bit of insurance for this Vancouver Canucks team that they might be able to do their thing because in that Pacific Division, Steele, they've got a little bit of ground to make up. And I know it's only a couple of points, but when I look at the Flames and the Kraken nipping at their heels, and we know how good the Knights and Oilers are, there's not a lot of wiggle room here. So I think they need to kind of put the pedal down. JT Miller, get him back in the fold. Besser's now back healthy. Let's see what this team can do. I'm intrigued. And that means value in both of those goaltenders.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we could see something along the lines of what the Toronto Maple Leafs have done so far this year with when both goaltenders are healthy, rotating them back and forth. I could actually see
such a 2024 thing.
Yeah, I could see, honestly, more of the starts going to Kevin Lankinen for how he's performed this season for the Vancouver Canucks. 12th in the league right now, first in a wild card spot. Like you said, definitely want to make up some ground right now, but they're not, 1 point back of the Oilers, 2 points back of the Kings. There's nothing crazy about this. Yeah, of course. But I think, again, Kevin Lankinen and Thatcher Demko, they're going to get together a good run out at the same time. So it's good to get Thatcher Demko back for your fantasy hockey team. If you've been holding on to him for the first 3 months of the season, it's good to see him back in the blue paint. We're going to get over to big time bets after the break. 5 games on the schedule. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. The goal is so simple. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings pour in all season long. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because you can win 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Kirill Kaprizov, 2+ goals. Adam Fox, 4+ shots. Connor Hellebuck, 30+ saves. The possibilities are endless. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNHL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive this bonus. It is guaranteed every single time. Prize Picks, run your game. Welcome back to the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod, making it your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button, put a smile on Flip and my face. We love seeing those 5-star reviews, all the feedback, all the conversations. Again, keep interacting with us. Leave your opinions, your comments, your statements, your questions on the YouTube channel and in our Twitter feed, also on Instagram as well, wherever you can find us. We really do appreciate all the conversations with our listeners out there and the interactions. Big time bets. That's our bread and butter. That's what we do here. We make some money on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod. At least we try to.
We try
to make some money for all of our listeners out there with the big time bets. 5 games, I believe, on the schedule for Wednesday night. I've got a same game parlay. Flip, would you like me just to rattle all 3 of these picks off?
I will.
Or do you would like me to start it off?
I would like you to rattle them off because as much as you know that I was a little bit late for the preparedness of this show, and apologies if today was a little sloppy, you guys. There's a lot going on in the kids' world over here. I would like to hear your picks first, Deal, so then I can perhaps hedge my bets accordingly, if you will. I do have 3 picks for you, and I do have a lock of the night because I see the listeners out there giving me the shout out on the locks of the night, giving you the shout outs on the picks. So I got to try and come correct, but I would very much like to cop out and hear your picks first, if that's all right.
Yeah, of course. I mean, 5 games on the schedule. Like I said, same game parlay for myself, but these are the games Wednesday night. Vancouver taking on the Utah Hockey Club. You've got Philadelphia taking on Detroit Red Wings, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the Dallas Stars, the Winnipeg Jets, Anaheim Ducks. And then the last game of the night, the Florida Panthers taking on the Minnesota Wild. That's exactly where I was looking at first. I actually took a step back and went to Toronto Maple Leaf Dallas Stars game. So that's where all 3 of my picks come from with this same game parlay. Number 1, I'm taking the Maple Leafs on the money line against the Dallas Stars. They have dominated the Dallas Stars in their last 10 games, and especially on the road. They have won their last 5 games in Dallas. So I'm going with the hot hands right here in Toronto. Good win over Buffalo. Obviously, they've lost Anthony Stolarz, but Joseph Wall will be there to save the day. Moneyline Maple Leafs first pick. Second pick, I'm going back to what we said with the Dallas Stars the last time. Plus, the Maple Leafs have been under the number quite frequently this year as well. I'm liking the Leafs Stars under 6.5 in this matchup. 7 out of the last 10 games have gone under the number between 100%. These 2 teams. Like we said, for the Dallas Stars, at this point, 7 of their last 7 have gone under the number. Big win for them, 3-1 over the Washington Capitals.
Under the number.
Out there, under the number. That is the second pick. Lock of the night. Auston Matthews, anytime goal. He's getting on the score sheet. He's only got 2 in his last 5 games. He's gone back and forth. One night goal, one night off, one night goal, one night off. It is a goal-scoring night for Auston Matthews. They need to get him more activated on the power play. From what I've seen, he's very on the peripheral, waiting for the one-timer, waiting for that cross-stream pass, threading that needle from Mitch Marner. He needs to be more activated, changing, rotating, and cycling wherever he can to try to get himself open. I'm looking for a power play goal. Auston Matthews, anytime goal, lock of the night.
Spice it up with the lock of the night. Love it. Love the under. Under has got to be done. If you want to cop out and go to 7.5, I like that too. I don't even hate on you for it. Toronto Maple Leafs 26th. So they're right there with the Dallas Stars as the best goals against in the league. The Dallas Stars have allowed the second least goals against in the NHL. Toronto Maple Leafs right there behind them at 81. Under 6.5, 7.5, whatever you want to take it. I'd actually maybe spice it up and go under 5.5 if you really want to get dangerous.
I think you could go a 5.5 if you want to.
I could see a 3-2 final. I just don't want to get burned by that empty netter in the 4-2. That's what I'm looking at. Second pick, Steele, and I think you're going to like this, and this is the angle that I'm taking on it because the Florida Panthers, they showed resiliency. They showed why they're the Stanley Cup champs. They're 7-3 in their last 10, and what I mean is against Edmonton the other night. But when they roll into Minnesota, even with the flower in the cage, Minnie has taken 3 straight against these Cats, and they've taken them in pretty convincing fashion, and I mean to the tune of 2 shutouts in the last 3 games. Minnie likes to play against Florida. They're at home, a very good team. I think this might be one of those letdown spots, Steele. Going into Edmonton, a very big Stanley Cup rematch, lots on the line, and then you got to keep it rolling on the road into another tough barn into Minnesota. I hate this spot for Florida. And sue me if I'm wrong, but I'm going Minnie on the money line as my second pick. And I'm going Vancouver on the money line as my lock of the night. And let me explain why. 7-2-1 for the Canucks over their last 10 against the Utah Yeti, Mammoth, whatever. They are also a team, though, when Rick Tocchet speaks, they listen. He called them out. They played better. Demko gets a big win. There's now good energy flowing back through this team. I think JT Miller back settled in is going to be big things for the forward group. So hit me with the Canucks on the money line as my lock of the night. Even though I'd almost throw in Minnie as my lock of the night, I am feeling the energy around this Canucks team now. That's huge. You answer the coach's call out. You get your number 1 netminder back, and he gets a big win against a good offensive team. And JT Miller's back in the fold in another game under his belt. Hit me with the Canucks on the money line as my lock of the night.
I'm liking the Canucks money line pick. That is definitely getting added into a separate parlay going into Wednesday. I love the confidence with the Minnesota money line pick. I was actually looking at the over 6.5. I think I'm just going to stay away from that game overall.
I think that's what you're feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm just feeling. Just again, like you said, the resiliency Florida showed against the Edmonton Oilers makes me question. And then it got obviously Philip Gustafson out for Wednesday as well. But I'm liking the picks nonetheless. Those are the picks. Those are the lock of the nights for Wednesday. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. For your second listen, you know what it is. You got to go check out the Locked On NHL podcast. The season never ends. They provide national expertise with a local perspective, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. From both Flip and I, we wish you happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever it is out there. Enjoy the holiday season. We wish you good luck with your bets tonight, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Feliz Navidad.